Hi, in this screencast, we're going to learn how to name molecular compounds. And molecular compounds are sometimes called covalent compounds. And a covalent or a molecular compound is identifiable by the fact that it has two nonmetals. So you will need to be familiar with where the nonmetals are in the periodic table. And anytime that you see just two of those elements together, they are one of these type of compounds that we're going to name today. Since we need to know if we have metals or nonmetals, it's helpful to remember where metals and nonmetals are. And you have probably seen on the periodic table that there is that zigzag line down the right side. And this helps identify where the nonmetals and the metals meet. They actually, it represents the metalloids or the semi-metals. So the nonmetals are here on the right and hydrogen. And then the metals are on the left. So again, remember we are looking for two nonmetals. So it can be any of these elements on the right and hydrogen. And when you have two of them together, you're going to name them in the way that I'm about to show you. So when you have two nonmetals together, you're going to use prefixes. And the prefixes that we use are pretty common. You're going to see things like mono, di, tri, tetra, penta, hexa, hepta, octa, nona, and deca. Now, these stand for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You will need to remember these prefixes because whenever you see a subscript that is 2 or 3 or 4, you're going to use the appropriate prefix on your element compound. Another rule, when you're using two nonmetals, you have to use the IDE ending on your second element, and you'll just change the element name to end in IDE. So if it's chlorine, it becomes chloride. If it's oxygen, it becomes oxide. And then there's a rule for using mono. Mono is never on the first element. You can use mono on the second element, and you can use any prefix other than mono on the first element. So those are the two rules that you need to keep in mind. All right, so here is the process in action. If you have CO2, we know that C is carbon, and we know that O is oxygen. Now, if you remember the previous screen, I just said that we are going to change the ending of the second element to IDE, so it becomes oxide. And now we have to use the prefix numbers. So our subscript here for carbon is 1. So the prefix for 1 is mono. And the first element is carbon. So we cannot use mono on the first element. We'll move on to the second element. The second element has a prefix of 2. So that prefix would be di. And so we would add the di here in front of the oxide. So it becomes carbon dioxide. And you've seen this and been experiencing carbon dioxide all your lives. Now, CO is slightly different. We have the subscript on the second element is an understood 1. So again, we're doing carbon first, and we're not putting in the mono. And then our second element is oxygen again, so it becomes an oxide, but we need to use the fact that it has a prefix of 1, so we would call that monoxide. Okay. This CCl4, again, carbon in the front. And now we have 4 of that element. We have tetra and chloride. IDE ending because it's the second element. This last one is a little bit different. We have a number in the front other than 1, so we're going to go with di, then the element nitrogen. No ending change because it's the first element. We have a 4, so that's tetra. And then the oxygen becomes oxide. So this one is called dinitrogen tetraoxide. Again, you are just applying the number for the subscript in our prefix form. Keep in mind that we change our endings to IDE for the second element, but not the first element. And we cannot use mono on the first element. It's understood. Okay, so now that we've gone over the whole process, here are 4 new compounds that I'd like you to attempt for homework. Go ahead and name these, upload your answers to the assignment in Schoology that will be called Naming Molecular Compounds. Thank you, and bye.